Good afternoon, everybody. How's everyone doing on this nice spring afternoon? Everyone have a good St. Patrick's Day? Yeah. Excellent. Well, this is the day to celebrate it musically if you didn't already over the week, Friday and Saturday night. I wanted to introduce Jeff Snow, welcoming him to the library, and he's doing the softer side of Celtic. So we're looking forward to listening to his music today. Looks like he has a lot of amazing instruments. And give him a warm welcome.
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you all for coming. This is where you all look at me and wonder what I'm going to do. Settle in, because we're going to have a fun afternoon. Near Bainbridge town in the county down, one morning last July, down a bordering green came a sweet colleen. She smiled as she passed me by. She looked so neat from her two bare feet to the sheen of her nut brown hair. Coaxing elf had to pinch myself to be sure I was really there. As she onward sped and I shook my head, I gazed with a feeling queer. And I said, says I, to a passerby, who's the maid with the nut brown hair? Smiled at me with pride, says he, she's a gem of Ireland's crown. Young Rosie McGann from the banks of the Bann, she's a star of the county down. Bantry Bay to Derry Quay, from Galway to Dublin-town. No maid I've seen like the sweet Colleen, met at the county down. At the harvest fair she'll surely be there, and I'll dress in my Sunday clothes, with my shoes shone bright and my hat cocked bright for the smile from my nut brown nose. No pipe I'll smoke, no horse I'll yoke, till my plow is rust-colored brown, and a smiling bride by my own fireside is the start of the county down. Bantry Bay to Derry Quay, from Galway to Dublin-town. No maid I've seen like the sweet Colleen, met at the county down. Bantry Bay to Derry Quay, from Galway to Dublin-town. No maid I've seen like the sweet Colleen, that I met at the county down. Thank you, thank you. thank you for coming out this afternoon. It's going to be a fun time. The first one was a traditional Irish tune called Star of the County Down. And when I played that, I look up and I watch all the Irish folks in the audience try and remember the words. Just the way that it works. And the second one was a traditional English tune. We know it for most of the year as Greensleeves. It's from the 1600s. We take it out at Christmas time. We alter the rhythm just a tiny wee bit, and we put another set of words up on top of it, and we call it What Child Is This? In the musical world, that's called piggybacking a song, where you take a melody and you just drop new words on it. So I thought it would be fun to start this afternoon with a trivia question. Most of you recognized Greensleeves in some form. And I'm going to be pretty sure that everybody in this room would recognize the Beatles. So we're going to put those two things together. And your question for the afternoon is, what Beatles song has about 3 seconds of Greensleeves in it? I'll wait. No. Okay. The Beatles started off, and they became popular in 1964, and they were a straight up 4/4 rock and roll band, and they were really, really good at what they did. Remember that? They were really good at what they did. And somewhere around 1967 or 8 or 9, somewhere in there, they went up on the mountaintop and met the Maharishi. Yeah. And then they came back down, and things were different for the Beatles. They changed their appearance, they changed their music, they changed all kinds of things. It was in that period of time, the period of time when they were morphing from one to the other, that they recorded a song called All You Need Is Love. Remember that one? All you need is love, love, love is all you need, over and over and over again. The last minute or so of that recording is just random sounds. At one point, there's a car horn that honks, and there's people talking in the background. There's just all kinds of sounds and noise in there. Dig it out, go to the internet, you'll find it. Listen to that period of time and look for the 3-minute and 15-second mark of the song, which puts it right in the middle of that piece at the end. And at the 3-minute and 15-second mark in the mix, if you listen carefully, you will hear Greensleeves. It is there. Now the question that needs to be answered is, why is it there? It is there because John Lennon, who was raised by his Aunt Mimi. Some of you probably know that. And Aunt Mimi's favorite song was Greensleeves. And she was always after Johnny to put Greensleeves in a Beatles song. And if you think back on the Beatles, there was just no place you were ever going to hide Greensleeves. So when they were in the studio and they were making all this sound and all this background noise and just recording this big, long, minute and something second piece of nothing, that's where they put it. They tucked it in there for Aunt Mimi. And if you do go there and you do look, listen very carefully, because also buried in the mix is Glenn Miller's In the Mood. It's in there also. I have no idea why that's there. But I do know why I'm here. And that's what we're going to talk about now. So we have checked in with Ireland and we have checked in with England. And we're going to talk about the Celtic lands today, and there are 4 of them. So now we are going to go to Scotland. You're a Scot, man? And you're going to like this story a lot. You too? I am a Scot. I am a Scot. I grew up in a very, very Scottish household. And we'll talk about that some as the afternoon goes along, because we'll tie it together to some of the things that we're doing. My father was a drummer in a bagpipe band. So when I was born, the music that played in the house as I was growing up was records, because that's what there were back then. It would be the Scottish bagpipe records and the Scottish folk song records and all of those things. My birthday's in August, so my second birthday was about 16 months old, more or less. And for Christmas that year, I got a marching drum. What 16-month-old child doesn't want a marching drum for Christmas? It was beautiful, but the drum was about this big, and I was about that big. And it didn't work very well. But I still have the drum. I still have it. So that was the music that I grew up with, and many of the pieces of music and things that I do for you today will be things that I first encountered when I was a child growing up. Because that's just what it was. That was music of the house. That's what I knew. So when I became a parent, I have 3 small boys, and we would get in the car and go off on the family adventure. We had graduated from records to cassette tapes at that point. We would get in a car and I'd back out of the driveway and pop in a cassette tape of bagpipe music and off we'd go. What adolescent boy doesn't want to be in a car for 6 hours of bagpipe music? Well, you know, sometimes you raise your kids the way you were raised because that's just what you know. I tell you all that to get you to this. Last year, my birthday rolled around in August, and I went out to the mailbox, and in the mailbox was a small package from one of my sons who now lives in South Carolina. And your first thought as a parent is, isn't that lovely? He remembered Dad on his birthday. And I went in the house and I put the box on the counter and I opened up the box, and inside that box was a smaller box from Ancestry.com. So I thought about that for a minute. You can see where this is going, can't you? I thought about that for a minute, and I called my son and I said, thank you for remembering Dad on his birthday. That was very kind of you. What's the point? And he said, well, Dad, the point is this. When my brothers and I were growing up, it was Scottish this and Scottish that and bagpipe this and old crazy folk song that. And now we're going to find out exactly how Scottish you really are. Well, I knew because I knew the family history. So I was not one of those things where you take the test and hope. I took the test. The only thing I didn't know was the number. According to the very smart people at Ancestry.com, who get paid lots of money to figure these kinds of things out, I am 83% Scottish. That is a big number. That is a very big number. Those of you who were parents can imagine how much fun I had making that phone call back to my son. He doesn't want to talk about that anymore. Understand why. But that's his loss. Excuse me. I'm in the middle of a 37-day run, so my throat gets a little scratchy, so I may be going to the water bottle a bit today. But we'll keep rolling. In the middle of the 1800s was a period of time in Scottish history known as the Highland Clearances. And that probably doesn't mean anything to most people. But this is what the Highland Clearances were and how they came about. Picture the upper half of Scotland, from a line of about Edinburgh north, up into the outer islands, up into the Hebrides, out into the Isle of Skye. All of that land was owned by a handful of landowners, a small group of landowners. Those tracts of land were just tens of thousands of acres that they broke into smaller pieces of land called crofts. And the people that lived in the crofts were called crofters. And that was just like we had sharecroppers here. The crofters would live on this piece of land, and they would raise animals or vegetables, or they would do something with the land in order to sustain themselves and their family. And then every year, they would go back to the landowner and pay him a tax for the use of the land. That's how the landowner made their money. Well, in the middle of the 1800s, the landowners all got together, and they figured out that if they had one really big piece of land instead of tens of thousands of small pieces of land, they personally could make a lot more money. We just need to do something with all the people that are living out there. Well, actually, that was pretty easy, because in those days, you could enlist the British Army to do pretty much anything you wanted them to do. And if you gave the British a chance to attack the Scottish, they were all for it. So up comes the British Army, and they attacked the crofters. Many of them fought back, they resisted, and they were killed. Many of them took off, they just ran, they went through the mountains and popped up somewhere else and began a new life in another place somehow. And many of them just gave up, they surrendered. And they were captured. They were taken to the coast and put on ships. Those ships came across the ocean. Many of the ships first hit land in what we know today as the maritime provinces of Canada. If you go up to the maritime provinces in Canada today, you will find an awful lot of people with Scottish descent up there, won't you? That's how they got there. Some of the ships came across and they went up the Cape Fear River into the port of Wilmington, North Carolina. Those people got off the ship and headed up into the Appalachian Mountains. If you go up into the Appalachian Mountains, you will find a lot of people up there of Scottish descent. That's how they got there. And that is how I ended up in Foxborough, Massachusetts this afternoon. My ancestors came in the Highland Clearances. came to America. That's how I got here. So, as you will see as we go through this today, when something happens in the Celtic lands, the way that they record it is somebody writes a song about the happening of the event. And this is a song about the Highland clearances. Hush, hush, time to be sleeping. Hush, hush, dreams come creeping. Dreams of peace and of freedom. Don't cry in your sleep, bonny babe. Once our valleys were ringing with the sounds of the children singing. Now sheep bleat late in the evening. Sheelings lie empty and broken. Hush, hush, time to be sleeping. Hush, hush, dreams come creeping. Dreams of peace and of freedom. Don't cry in your sleep, bonny babe. We stood with heads bowed in prayer while factors laid the cottages bare. The flames, the fires, the clear mountain air. Many were dead by the morning. Where was our proud Highland metal, our men once so feared in battle, now stand cowed, huddled like cattle, waiting to be shipped o'er the ocean. No use pleading or praying, now gone, gone, all hopes of staying. Hush, hush, the anchor's weighing. Don't cry in your sleep, bonny babe. Oh, 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 hush, hush, time to be sleeping. Hush, hush, dreams come creeping. Dreams of peace and of freedom. Don't cry in your sleep, bonny babe. That was cheery, huh? No, it wasn't. But we tend to think of Celtic music. We tend to think of the fiddle tunes that roll by at 180 or 200 beats a minute, or the bang your glass on the bar and spill beer all over yourself songs. And there's plenty of that, and it's all good stuff. But there's a lot that you don't hear, and a lot of stories that don't get told. And that's what we're going to do this afternoon. So we're going to set all those popular things aside, and you're not going to hear any of them. But you can hear a lot of things, and you're going to leave here with a different appreciation of what life was like back then, perhaps. 1851. 1851. Michael Considine was born in County Clare, Ireland. He was born in a rise-on-the-road village known as Spansel Hill, a little tiny place. And as Michael Considine was growing up, he realized, as so many other young men did in Ireland back then, that there was no future for him in Ireland. The potato famine was going on, and people were leaving, and those that weren't leaving, most of them were dying. It was just a really sad place. And he knew that if he was going to make something of himself in the world, he was going to need to go someplace else, and that someplace else was here. So across the ocean he came, and he came into Boston, just up the road a piece. So off the ship, and he spent a year or so in Boston before realizing that there were a lot more Irish lads looking for work in Boston than there was work for them, and that if he was going to make something of himself in America, it would need to be someplace else. He had heard of the prosperity in California and the gold rush and all of that. So across the country he went. And Michael Considine settled in San Francisco. He spent the rest of his life in San Francisco. And Michael Considine died in San Francisco in 1873. He was 22 years old when he died. History does not tell us what Michael Considine died of. Back then they didn't write causes of death down. You were either alive or you weren't. But history does tell us this. When Michael Considine was dying, he was dying of something progressive that he knew that was going to kill him. He knew that he was not going to live a long time. It was a progressive type disease. And that made him very sad for a couple of reasons. The first and most obvious reason is he was 22 years old and he knew that he was going to die. But secondly, he also knew that he was never going to get back to his village. It was a mark of success of the immigrants when they came here to get enough money, to get enough resources to be able to go home, go back to Ireland, go back to your family and say, look at me. I went to America. I've had a success there. I've got enough money. I can come back and visit you and help you, give you some money. It was almost like the returning hero when that happened. And he knew that that was never going to happen for him. And that made him sad. Not long before he died, Michael Considine had a very, very vivid dream. And in this dream, he went back to Ireland. And in the dream, while in Ireland, he did all of the things that he would have done had he been able to go there for real. He went and he visited the house that he grew up in. He saw his family, his friends. He even went and checked in on his old girlfriend while he was there. Very, very vivid. And when he woke up in the morning, he wrote down some notes based on the dream. And he took those notes and he turned them into a poem. Michael Considine had the foresight to take that poem, put it in an envelope, and mail it back to his nephew, who still lived in Spancel Hill. That is the reason that the poem survived all of these years. Because if you think about it, if he just wrote the poem and left it wherever he was living, when he passed away, somebody would have come in and scooped up all of his stuff and thrown it out, and the poem would have been part of that. But because he sent it back, the poem lives today. This is Michael Considine's poem. Last night, as I lay dreaming of pleasant days gone by, my mind was bent on rambling, to Erin's Isle I did fly. I stepped aboard a vision, and I sailed off with a will, till we gladly came to anchor at the cross on Spancel Hill. It being the 23rd of June, the day before the fair, Erin's sons and daughters, they were all assembled there. The young, the old, the stout and the bold, they came to sport and kill. It's a curious combination at the fair on Spancel Hill. I went to see my old home, as every stone could tell. The old Maureen was just the same, the apple trees over the well. I miss my sister Ellen, my brothers Pat and Bill. There only were strange faces at the house on Spancel Hill. I went to see my neighbors, to hear what they might say. The old were getting feeble, the young ones turning gray. I met with Taylor Quigley, he's brave as ever still. He used to mend my breeches when I lived on Spancel Hill. I took a flying visit to my first and only love. She's pure as any lily, she's gentle as a dove. She threw her arms around me, saying, Michael, I love you still. She's Mac the Ranger's daughter, she's the pride of Spancel Hill. And then I stooped to kiss her, as I did in days of yore. She said, Michael, you're only joking, as you often were before. The cock crew in the morning, he crew both loud and shrill. I awoke in California, far, far from Spancel Hill. And then my vision faded, and tears came to my eyes. I'd hoped to see that dear old land once more before I die. May the joyous King of Angels his choicest blessings spill on that glorious piece of nature, the cross on Spancel Hill. That one's kind of special, isn't it? And so is this. Every day when I pick this up and I look out, I see people having flashbacks and repressed middle school memories. Because you saw something like this a long, long time ago, didn't you? Yeah, some of you. This is an auto harp. An auto harp. And those of you who don't remember it are fortunate, because you were exposed to it, you just don't remember it. It's one of those things you remember, you just shut it off. This came to most people's attention in late 50s to the 1960s into the very early 1970s as a school teacher's instrument. The Oscar Schmidt Company, who was the commercial maker of auto harps back then, and even today, got the idea that if we put auto harps in every middle school on the East Coast, then every child will get exposed to the auto harp, and when they get out of middle school, they'll want one, and we'll sell a lot of auto harps. Well, the idea is, it's got some marketing sense, I suppose. But what happened was this. Because they were giving them away by the tens of thousands, they had to make them as cheaply as possible. If you understand the way that acoustic instruments work, basically the wood vibrates. This is a box full of air. The wood vibrates, it gets the air moving in the box, and that's what you hear. So the Oscar Schmidt Company made all these auto harps out of plywood, which has no resonating properties whatsoever. Which means that they didn't sound very good. They didn't stay in tune worth anything. And the teachers had no interest in tuning the thing every 2 or 3 minutes. So it really didn't work very well, and they painted them black. And you'll find some. I mean, if you've got an old school that's been around for a long time, go look in the music closet. Way in the back corner, you'll find a bunch of black auto harps. They're probably still stacked up back there. If you should find one, I don't want it. I have on more than one occasion and I look out and there's a guy standing on my front step with a black auto harp in his hand. Are you the guy that plays the auto harp? Yeah. Here. Thanks. If you find a black auto harp, I have found a really good use for them. In the middle of the summer, when you're out by the pool on a warm summer's night and you want to get the fire pit roaring, you just one match in one of those old black auto harps and you got a fire. It's really very cool. So this one's a little bit different than that, and I'm going to play it a little bit differently. It was designed to be played with a pick and strummed as a school teacher's instrument, so it was done something like this. And then the folk singers got a hold of it in the 60s, 50s, and 60s, and they played it as a rhythm instrument. That's how it was designed to be played. And somewhere in the early 1980s, we're not really sure who did this, but somebody came along, and I think it was probably a Scotsman, because if you know anything about the Scottish guys, we always do things the hard way. Somebody said, that's far too easy to play it with a pick and strum it as a rhythm instrument. Let's try and finger pick it, like you would pick a guitar or a banjo or some other stringed instrument. So we're going to give it a go this afternoon, see if I can finger pick this beast. Wish me luck. Isn't that amazing?
Yes.
Isn't that amazing? All right, so I have discovered in my years on the road that people want to know how this thing works. So I'm going to try and explain it to you as best that I can. There are 37 strings. Here, 37 strings, and there are 13 buttons. Each button creates a different musical chord. So like, I'll just. You can hear every time I push down a different button, I get a different musical chord. A chord is a grouping of notes. It does that by pieces of felt that are on the bottom of the button going down, resting on some of the strings and muting them out. So some of the strings ring and some of the strings don't ring. For example, if I do this, that sounds really pretty. I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to go slowly and listen, and you'll be able to hear the strings that don't ring. They'll make kind of a clicking sound. When you do this, the clicking sound gets lost in the sound of the strings that are ringing. It's only when you go slowly that you can hear those. So the trick is when you're finger picking it, and every time I push a button, I have a different palette of strings. Some it's about half ring and half don't ring, but the palette changes every time I push a different button down. It's all different places. The trick is, when you're finger picking it, is to hit the strings that are going to ring and miss the ones that are going to go click. How hard can that be, he says. War II was breaking out over in Europe. And over on the west coast of Scotland, southwest corner of Scotland, a little village called Campbellton, Scotland, was a man named George McIntyre. George McIntyre was a piper in the village bagpipe band. Every village in Scotland to this very day has their own bagpipe band. And back then, George McIntyre was part of the Campbellton band. But as so many other young men did when the war started, he went off and joined the British Army to go off and do his part to fight the Great War. He was not there for very long before he was captured and held in a German prisoner of war camp for the duration of the war. He spent his time in captivity playing his pipe tunes over and over again in his head. It was a way of staying connected to the village, to the band, and probably to his sanity as well, because he was being held in a prisoner of war camp. While he was there, he wrote a bagpipe tune in his head. And when he got back to Campbellton at the end of the war, he taught it to the bagpipe band. This tune does not have a huge following in the United States, but if you go over to Scotland, it does. He calls this tune The Hills of Argyll. Some of you are wondering, what about those tunes that go by at 180 or 200 beats a minute? Why don't you play any of them on that little thing of yours? That'd be really hard, wouldn't it? Yeah. I'm going to give it a go. I'm going to give it a go, and I'll tell you why I'm going to do that. I look out at you, good folks at Foxborough, and you look very forgiving. I hope. So if I get this, you're going to think that was really cool. And if I don't get it, you can just look at me and think, what a pity. So this is a jig. And it's going to roll by pretty quick. And if anybody would like to get up and show us your jigging skills, feel free to do so. I got it. If you watch me carefully, and I know you're still trying to figure out what exactly I'm doing. Notice that I never look at my right hand. Never. My right hand is playing pallets of the 37 strings, but I'm playing with anywhere from 3 to 5 fingers at a given time to get different combinations of notes. And it goes by pretty quickly. And you can't think that fast. You just have to kind of trust your hands to go find it. When you see me looking down, I'm looking over here to make sure that I land on the right button. So I can only manage one hand at a time. That's the way I manage. But, I have been blessed, and I know that because I can play many, many musical instruments. You're just seeing a small smattering of them here. But I can play a lot of musical instruments. But when the house is dark and quiet, and it is just me, and the cat that one of my sons left there 13 years ago. Don't laugh, he's coming back for it. And no, he's not. And you know that, don't you? Yeah. Most people, your kids go off and they leave stuff in your basement, and it never goes away. Yeah. This is not the DNA test, son. This is another one. They all have issues. It's just the way it works. If you have kids, you understand that part. Yeah. He moved around the world a couple times, and every time he left America and moved around the world, stuff ended up in my basement. Well, one day last week was the day I've waited for when the moving van backed up to my house, and all his stuff went on the truck and headed for Tampa, Florida. Won't he be surprised tomorrow when he gets a knock on the door? I thought about putting a cat in there. Anyway, when the house is dark and quiet, it's me and the cat. This is the one that I will pick up and play for myself. Because when I am not out running up and down the road and doing things like this, I will just sit in the dark and the quiet and play for myself every once in a while. I get to do what I want to do for me. This one's special. We've missed one part of the United Kingdom so far. Where haven't we gone yet? Wales. We don't want to leave them out. So we're going to go to Wales. I'm going to play you a couple of Welsh tunes. You might recognize these. The first one is called Ash Grove. Ash Grove is a beautiful little Welsh tune. If you don't recognize it as Ash Grove, you might recognize it because it appears, Ash Grove was piggybacked, remember we talked about that earlier, by every religion that you can find has taken Ash Grove, written a different set of words up on top of it and stuck it in their hymnal. So it's in the hymnal of pretty much any religion that you can find, you will find the melody to Ash Grove. So you hear it and you go, oh, that's that song we sang in church this morning. Yeah, that's it. That's the one. And then we'll finish it off with a Welsh lullaby called All Through the Night. That is a very special instrument, and my promise to you is that before we wrap this up a little bit later, I will pick it up and play it for you one more time, because it's just that cool. But we're moving on. coming. Don't start without me. In the 1700s, when these sailing ships would leave the various ports in the United Kingdom to play their wares or trade around the world, they could be gone for upwards of 7 years before ending up back where they started. And that sounds crazy, but you're thinking about it in today's world. Think about it in that world. Let's say you leave Ireland, you've got a load of something on your ship. You're coming to Boston. Well, it takes you a couple of months to get there on one of those old sailing ships. Then you have to wait your turn to go into the harbor and unload. And then they didn't have cranes and gantries and all the stuff they have today to unload ship. They just had people. People would get on the ship, pick up a barrel, carry it off, go back and get another barrel. It took a long time to load and unload ships back then. Then you had to wait your turn to pick up a load that was going someplace else in the world, which could be China or South America, or who knows where it was going next. So you start stretching it out, and it's pretty easy to see that it could be a while before you got home, back to where you started. So let's look at it a little bit differently. You are the wife or the girlfriend of a sailor. It is time for him to go. You walk him down to the pier, you kiss him goodbye, up the ramp he goes, ship sails away, he waves, you wave, and you go home. And you wait for upwards of 7 years to see if he comes back. Sometimes he did, good for you. Sometimes he didn't. And if he didn't, most likely you don't know why. There were no cell phones, there were no telephones of any kind. There weren't much communication back then. Once you got outside your village, it was your whole new world. You don't know. Maybe the ship sank somewhere. Maybe the pirates got him. Maybe he found somebody he likes better in another place. I'm sure all those things happened. But from a practical standpoint, gone is gone. So, as we talked about earlier, when something happens, the way that they record it. Yes, ma'am.
How did the man get paid? How did the family live while they were away for 7 years?
How did they get paid?
Yeah. How did the family live?
I'm connecting dots that I probably shouldn't be connecting, but I'm going to assume that the freight company was based in wherever they were and paid the family. So, since they would have to be raising money and turning money over. I don't know the answer to that. I've never been asked that question before. But that's not part of the song. Thanks for asking, though. So as happened with so many things back then, as I told you earlier, somebody writes a song about it. This is a song about an English sailor. His name is John Riley. Fair young maid in her garden, strange young man came riding by, said, fair young maid, will you marry me? This then, sir, was her reply. No, kind sir, I cannot marry thee. I've a love, he sails the deep salt sea. He's been gone these 7 years, still no man shall marry me. And he said to her, what if he's died or in a battle slain? What if he's drowned in the deep salt sea? What if he's found another love? He and his new love both married be. She answered him, if he's died or in a battle slain, I will die when the moon kisses gave her 1, 2, and 3. Said, wait no more, my own true love. I am your love, lost John Riley. Weep no more, my own true love. I am your love, lost John Riley. You thought that was going to be another sad one, didn't you? Fooled you. Just when you thought you had me figured out, I changed the rules. Okay. This is the part that you have been waiting for almost an hour. Doesn't seem like it's been an hour, does it? No. That goes by quick. But this is the part that you've been waiting for. You just didn't know that you were waiting for it. This is the part where you sing for me. You can handle this. I know that you can. Yes, you can. Even you, sir. You can do this. If your wife says you can do it, you got this. That's good. I'm going to give you 5 words. 5 words as part of a chorus of a song. 5 words in the chorus. I will do the rest of the song. It's not hard. Let me tell you the story that goes with it. I told you that I grew up in a very, very Scottish household. My dad was a drummer in a bagpipe band, and we listened to the Scottish bagpipe records and the folk songs over and over and over again as I was a child growing up. And there's different types of bagpipe music, and some of it are what the marches, and the ones that the bands will march to. And when he started to play the marches, or the records of the marching tunes, he would start marching around the house, like the band was marching around the house. And marching right alongside him would be his friend Johnny Walker. And that rung a bell with a few of you, didn't it? Some of you know him. So, the different songs would roll by, and as a child I would listen to them. And then there was one song that would pop up, and when this song came up, I knew that it was going to get played over and over and over again. My father's name was Donald, a very Scottish name. And this is a song about a man named Donald, so he was kind of convinced that it was probably related to him somehow. And this song about a man named Donald, who a long time ago lived up on the Isle of Skye, which is off the northwest coast of Scotland. And if you've never been there, make it a point to go. It's probably the prettiest place you will ever find. And this Donald left Skye and he went to London on vacation, wearing his kilt. And a long time ago, the kilt in London was not something that they saw back then. The Scots never went down to England. But he went down wearing his kilt. And wherever he went, the people just looked at him because they weren't quite sure what he was wearing and what that was all about. And the women would look at him especially and say, Donald, where are your trousers? Because they expected him to be wearing trousers, not a kilt. So somebody wrote a song about it. Donald and his kilt and his lack of trousers. And we're going to sing that this afternoon, and you're going to help me. I will sing the first line of the chorus, and you will sing back to me the second line of the chorus. The first line of the chorus is mine. Let the wind blow high. You want to share with us what you're laughing about, man? Huh? You're just glad I'm not wearing my kilt right now, aren't you? Yeah. And you will sing back to me, let the wind blow low. So it's very simple. Let the wind blow high, let the wind blow low, which is like this. Let the wind blow high, let the wind blow low. Ready? Let the wind blow high. Let the wind blow low. Perfect. Through the streets in my kilt I'll go. All the lassies shout, hello, Donald, where's your trousers? I just come down from the Isle of Skye. I'm no very big, I'm awful shy. Lassies shout when I go by, Donald, where's your trousers? Let the wind blow high. Through the streets in my kilt I'll go. All the lassies shout, hello, Donald, where's your trousers? Well, I went down to London town and I had some fun in the underground. The ladies turned their heads around, saying, Donald, where are your trousers? Let the wind blow high. Through the streets in my kilt I'll go. All the lassies shout, hello, Donald, where's your trousers? Well, the lassie took me to a ball. It was slippery in the hall, and I was afraid that I might fall, for I wasn't wearing any trousers. Let the wind blow high. Through the streets in my kilt I'll go. All the lassies shout, hello, Donald, where's your trousers? Well, the lassies want me, everyone. Let them catch me if they can. You can delight. It is not wrong, I know it's right. The Highlanders would get a fright if they saw me wearing trousers. Let the wind blow high through the streets in my kilt go. All the lassies shout, "Hello, Donald, where's your trousers?" Let the wind blow high through the streets in my kilt I'll go. All the lassies shout, "Hello, Donald, where's your trousers?" That was good, wasn't it? Yeah. You did well. You did really well. You did so well, I'm going to reward you with another. We'll do another sing-along. This one, we're going to raise the bar a tiny bit. So instead of 5 words in the chorus, we'll do the whole chorus. You get the whole chorus this time, and I'll do the rest of the song. So this is your part of the song. You ready? Mary Mac's father's making Mary Mac, marry me. My father's making me Mary, Mary Mac. I'm gonna marry Mary for my Mary to take care of me. We'll all be feeling merry when I marry Mary Mac. That's your part. I got the rest. No? No, no, no? All right. So, I'll be kind. I will sing Mary Mac's father's making Mary Mac marry me. You will come back to me with my father's making me Mary, Mary Mac. My father's making me Mary, Mary Mac. You can do that, right? You got this? You sure? You don't have that look of confidence. You can do this, right? Okay, here we go. Mary Mac's father's making Mary Mac marry me. My father's making me Mary, Mary Mac. Ready? Mary Mac's father's making Mary Mac marry me. All right, I left something out. I forgot to ask you to do it together. It makes it a lot easier for me to keep the song moving that way. Mary Mac's father's making Mary Mac marry me. My father's making me Mary, Mary Mac. Ready? Mary Mac's father's making Mary Mac marry me. My father's making me Mary, Mary Mac. Perfect. I'm gonna marry Mary for my Mary to take care of me. We'll always feeling Mary when I marry Mary Mac. Well, there is a little lass, and her name is Mary Mac. Make no mistake, she's a girl I want to pack. And a lot of other fellas try to get up on her track. And I'm thinking that I'd have to get up early. Mary Mac's father's making Mary Mac marry me. You're falling apart. I'm gonna marry Mary for my Mary to take care of me. We'll always feeling Mary when I marry Mary Mac. Well, Mary and her mother go an awful lot together. In fact, you hardly ever see the one without the other. And all the people wonder if it's Mary or her mother, or the both of them together that are important. Mary Mac's father's making Mary Mac marry me. I'm gonna marry Mary for my Mary to take care of me. We'll always feel Mary when I marry Mary Mac. Okay, that was good. Let's take a detour. Let's do an Irish sea shanty. Sea shanties are the songs that the sailors used to sing. They had to work on rhythm when they were raising the sails or pulling ropes or doing whatever they were doing. They had to make sure they stayed in rhythm, so they would sing the song. You might even know this one. What do you do with a drunken sailor? What do you do with a drunken sailor? What do you do with a drunken sailor? Early in the morning. Way, hey, up she rises. Way, hey, up she rises. Way, hey, up she rises. Early in the morning. Shave his belly with a rusty razor. Shave his belly with a rusty razor. Shave his belly with a rusty razor. Early in the morning. Way, hey, up she rises. Way, hey, up she rises. Way, hey, up she rises. Early in the morning. Put him in the cabin with the captain's daughter. Put him in the cabin with the captain's daughter. Put him in the cabin with the captain's daughter. Early in the morning. Way, hey, up she rises. Way, hey, up she rises. Way, hey, up she rises. Early in the morning. Get ready. Mary Mac's father's making Mary Mac marry me. I'm gonna marry Mary for my Mary to take care of me. We'll all be feeling Mary when I marry Mary Mac. That was interesting. I Are you having fun this afternoon? Yes. Well, thank you. If you are, please, please, please. As much as I'd like you to think that I just randomly wandered in here this afternoon, I did not. And you know, your library's doing great things here, and they're trying to do things like this to keep the community interest high. And they need your support. They need you to help them because you know they do pay for this kind of stuff. So it's important that you support them so that you can come here and do this. So please get on their team if you can. Okay, let us play for you. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Let's play Mo. I'm going to play for you an English children's song from the 1600s. Pretty old English tune. Oops, remove that. This one's called The Elfin Knight. I'm going to spell that for you because we're going to talk about it afterwards. The Elfin Knight. E-L-F-I-N-K-N-I-G-H-T. So translated from the 1600s to today, roughly translated, it means something like wee little lad or small little boy or something along those lines. You get the picture. This was a very popular children's song in England in the 1600s. You know that one? This is where you're looking at me thinking, he told us he was going to play the Elfin Knight and he played Scarborough Fair. No, I played the Elfin Knight. The song that you know as Scarborough Fair began its musical life as the Elfin Knight in the 1600s. It's called a child's ballad from back then. And it, over the years, the folk process, the folk singers, the folk process works simply put this way. Back a long time ago, somebody like me would come to a village and play songs for the people. There was nothing was written down, nothing was recorded. So I would leave and somebody in the village would finally play the song and they'd play the parts they remembered and they'd make up some pieces to fit in the holes. So the song now is slightly different than it was before. So if you start extrapolating that out over 300 or 400 years, the Elfin Knight popped out about 1900. They stopped calling it the Elfin Knight. They just started calling it Scarborough Fair. But if you go to Wikipedia, you can find a Wikipedia page for the Elfin Knight. And on that page, you will find the original words. And if you read through the original words of the Elfin Knight, every once in a while you'll find something that will be reminiscent of Scarborough Fair, because bits and pieces of it survived all of these years. Most of it didn't, but bits and pieces of it did. And you'll be able to read it and see that there's some connection between those two tunes. The part that I played in the beginning, when you all thought that I had fully lost it, was not written by Paul Simon. It was written by an English folk singer named Martin Carty in about 1949. When Paul Simon got out of high school, he was 18 years old, and he went to England to learn how to be a folk singer, learn how to travel around and play and manage different things. And he hooked up with Martin Carty. Martin Carty's still out there. He's almost 90 now. And he's still running around England playing his songs. But he hooked up with Paul Simon, and while he traveled around, Martin Carty taught Paul Simon the arrangement of Scarborough Fair that you know. It was written by him. Paul Simon came back and wrote the second part to it. And onward we go. A little bit of the history of the song is very cool. In 1855, John Hunt left his home in Ireland and came to the United States. He was another one that got out. He settled in Aberdeen, Maryland. He got a job, he got married, he had kids, he had a house, he did all those things. John Hunt spent the rest of his life in Aberdeen, Maryland. John Hunt died in Aberdeen, Maryland, and John Hunt is buried in Aberdeen, Maryland. As I tell you the story and play for you the song that goes with it, please keep this in your head. When John Hunt came here in 1855, he was 13 years old. Let's put that in perspective for a moment, and let's think about our 13-year-old child or our 13-year-old grandchild or our 13-year-old niece or nephew, or this is a 13-year-old kid who lives down the street. Leaving home, going to a country where they know nobody, and they have no idea at all what they're going to do when they get there. They just know that if they're going to survive the poverty and the famine and all that was happening in Ireland, they needed to get out, and they needed to just go someplace else and figure it out. And there were thousands and thousands of them, and John Hunt was just one of them. And he never went back and saw his family again. He was another one that never got home. Back in Ireland, John Hunt's father, a man named Brian Hunt, could neither read nor write. So every year, he would go next door because the village schoolmaster lived next door. And every year he would dictate a letter to the village schoolmaster, kind of like the old annual Christmas letter thing. And he would tell the schoolmaster all the comings and goings of the family, who got married, who died, who had kids, who bought a house. All of the things that we do instantly today with a text message, they did once a year with the family letter. And every family letter included a request for John to come back and see his family again. And he never did. They never saw each other again. Jumping forward to about 1972, a man named Peter Jones is cleaning out a house in Aberdeen, Maryland. And in that house, he finds a stack of old papers. Those papers were the letters that had been written to John Hunt 100 years earlier. They survived. Peter Jones took those letters. There's 21, I think, in the series. He took those letters, and he took them, and he figured out what order they belonged in chronologically, so it made sense chronologically. And then he kind of pushed them all together, and he wrote something that we know today as the Ballad of Kilkelly, Ireland, the story of the Hunt family. Kilkelly, Ireland, 1860, my dear and loving son John, your good friend the schoolmaster Pat McNamara, so good to write these words down. Your brothers have all gone to find work in England, the house is so empty and sad. The crop of potatoes is sorely infected, a third to a half of them bad. Your sister Bridget and Patrick O'Donnell are going to be married in June. Your mother says not to work on the railroad. Be sure and come on home soon. Kilkelly, Ireland, 1870, my dear and loving son John. Hello to your missus, to your 4 children, may they grow healthy and strong. Our Michael has got in a wee bit of trouble, I don't think that he'll ever learn. Because of the dampness, there's no turf to speak of, we have nothing to burn. Bridget is happy and named a child for her, you know, she's got 6 of her own. You say you found work, you don't say what kind. When are you coming home? Kilkelly, Ireland, 18 and 80. Michael and John, my sons. I'm sorry to give you the very sad news. Your mother's passed on. We buried her down at the church in Kilkelly. Your brothers and Bridget were there. You don't have to worry, she died very quickly. Remember her in your prayers. It's so good to hear that Michael's returned. With money he's sure to buy land. The crop has been poor and the people are selling at any price that they can. Kilkelly, Ireland, 18 and 90, my dear and loving son John. I suppose that I must be close on to 80. 30 years you've been gone. Because of all of the money you sent me, I'm still living out on my own. Michael has built himself a fine house. Bridget's daughters are grown. Thank you for sending your family picture. They're lovely young women and men. Why don't you think about coming to visit? A joy to see you again. Kilkelly, Ireland, 18 and 92, my dear brother John. I'm sorry I didn't write to you to tell you. Father is gone. He was living with Bridget. She said he was cheerful, healthy right up to the end. You should have seen him play with the grandchildren of Pat McNamara, your friend. We buried him alongside of Mother down at the Kilkelly churchyard. He was a strong and feisty old man, considering his life was so hard. It's funny the way he kept talking about you. He called for you at the end. Why don't you think about coming to visit? We'd all like to see you again. That one's kind of extra special, isn't it? And over the years and the decades, that song has attached itself to me in many ways. It's one that I'm known for. And I know that there's at least one person in here that came to hear it today, and there you go. It's one that I play it every day. Wherever I am, I play that song and I tell that story. And I tell you that as long as I'm capable to sit in this chair and do what I do, I will tell that story every day. It's that important to me. Let me share something else with you, though. About 17 years ago, I had the opportunity to see and transcribe the letters. It was a bit of a challenge because the paper's all the things that you can imagine a 100-year-old paper is or was. But I got most of it. There's a couple places that I had to guess at words, and a couple places I left a blank spot, but you get the idea. It's there. And I tell you that to tell you this. Up in the back, there are some cards with my picture on them. If you take one of those, not for the picture, but take it for the words on the other side. They make me do things with pictures on it. It's not pretty. On the other side, there was a bunch of stuff, but one of the things that's there is my website address. And if you go to my website, you will find a page for Kilkelly, Ireland. Right at the top where it lists all the different pages, there's a page for Kilkelly, Ireland. And if you go to that page, you'll find some pictures and you'll find some more of the story that I didn't tell today. But you'll also find the transcriptions of the first and last letter. And you can go there and read the first and last letter. and get a feeling and an idea of the letter and times in their own words. It's very interesting. Also on that page, there's a little email button thing somewhere that you can push, and it will pop up, it should pop up right on your computer, an email window all addressed to me. How convenient. And all you have to do is fill in your part, tell me that you met me here in Foxborough today, and my gift to you, my thanks for coming, each and every one of you, would be a PDF copy of all of the letters, all 21. I can't put 21 on the webpage because it would just go to the bottom of the internet somewhere. But I can email you a PDF file of all the letters, and I'm very happy to do that when anybody asks. Because of that, I hear from people all over the world. People Google Kill Kelly letters, which leads them to me, it leads them to my website, leads them to find this, and they find the offer. So I get emails from people all over the world asking for the letters, and I'm happy to do that. By now, I think I've probably sent them to pretty much every corner of the world at some point in time. I'll tell you one story. 7.5 years ago, I can almost tell you the date. I got an email from a gentleman who lives down in the bottom of New Jersey, a small little town between Atlantic City and the Delaware border, down in that little corner of New Jersey down there. He had Googled Kill Kelly letters, and he found me, and when I sent him the letters, and of course I was happy to do so off went the letters. It was a very short time later that he got right back to me. Do you remember the part of the song about the brother Michael who got in trouble and went off, and then he came back and he got a house? Michael had a pretty prominent role in the song. This is Michael Hunt's great-great-grandson. The Hunt family knew of the letters, they knew the song, they knew that the letters were the basis of the song, but they did not know that the letters existed in any form. They just thought they were gone. And so I was able to give the Hunt family the letters. And I was able to communicate over the years back and forth with him. The story that I told you in the beginning about John Hunt, much of that comes from my communications with him and him filling me in on the histories of the family and all of that. So it really is something that if you have any interest at all, please take advantage of that. I play that song every day, and I have played it in rooms packed to the walls with Irish grandmothers. Yeah. And yeah, you're laughing because you can imagine what that's like, you know. And I will tell you, see, you can all see me, but I can see everybody. I'm the only person in this room that can see everybody. So when I play that song, I look up, and I look for the emotion in the room, and there's always emotion in the room. And that's a good thing. That means that I'm telling the story correctly. If I ever look up and I'm not seeing the emotion building in the room, then I know that I'm probably not telling the story very well, and maybe it's time for me to stop. But I'm not quite there yet. But when you play it in a room full of Irish grandmothers, it's quite something. And I will tell you something about Irish grandmothers that you might not know. An Irish grandmother can hide an entire box of Kleenex on her person. I start playing the song, and I look up, and here we go. Up here, down there, and they're passing the Kleenex back and forth. And sometimes in the back of the room, it looks like it's snowing back there. It's moving around. It's an amazing sight. It is. I promised you I would come back to this, and I will. I'm going to play you a couple more, but before I do that, please, thank you for coming today. Thank you. It is literally my privilege and my honor to play for you today. I think about it a lot, and I think, oh, people keep showing up. I've been on the road for a long time, and it's still amazing. I will be at the back afterwards. If you have any questions, you just want to say hello, there's a card. Make sure you take the cards. There's also some CDs back there for sale. And the good part about the CDs is if you get one and take it home, I don't have to take it home. That works really well for all of us. You get one and I don't have to take it. But I'll be back there, and I'll spend all the time you need back there at whatever you want. So thank you very much. I'm going to play you two more. The first one I'm going to play for you is an Irish sailors tune called South Wind. It's very, very pretty. And then I will finish us off this afternoon with the tune that is played at the end of Scottish sessions everywhere in the world. When the Scottish musicians get together, we always play the same thing last. And it doesn't matter where in the world we are, we just play it last. You will recognize it, We sing it in America at the end of the year. I have absolutely no idea why. It was written by the Scottish poet Robert Burns. Thank you for coming. It's been a blessing for me to play for you today. Another one I did. Oh, I forgot. Oh. Thank Vin. Vin's over there recording all this. I'm going to be on whatever your local cable channel is. Thank you, Vin.